Hi everyone and welcome. Today I'm going to be speaking to Gloria Borsa about tips for taking the AP Italian Language and Culture exam. Gloria holds a BA in Foreign Languages and Literatures and two masters, one in bilingual translation and the other in theory and pedagogy and second language acquisition. Gloria is currently teaching AP and IB Italian at Baylor High School. She is also a College Board AP Italian Lead Workshop presenter, the AP Daily Lead Instructor for the College Board, and the AP Italian External Consultant for ETS. Welcome, Gloria, and thank you for being here today.
It is a pleasure to be here with you.
So before we talk about tips, can you give me an idea of what the overall structure of the AP Italian exam is?
Okay, so the AP Italian is divided into two parts. The first one is the multiple choice. The test begins with the reading, multiple choice, the reading comprehension, and then it goes to the mixed reading and listening part. This is a new part of the exam that this year, for the first time, students will find. And I think it's very good because starting with the reading, they start thinking in Italian as they take the test. Then with the reading and listening, they have already a bit more confidence taking the test. And then they go to the last part of the multiple choice, which is the listening section. Then the free response part of the test starts with the writing an email. They have 15 minutes to read an email and respond to it. Then they have the argumentative essay based on three different sources. They will have a question they need to answer, respond, citing and using for their answer each source. And then we go to the spoken part, which is the conversation and the cultural comparison, which is the most important part for the exam, that is for the free response, because the exam is the Italian language and culture. So with the cultural comparison, students have the possibility to show their knowledge of Italian culture.
And does any portion of the exam carry more weight than other portions? So does the cultural comparison carry more weight than, say, the writing portion?
So the two parts of the exam, the multiple choice and the free response, have exactly the same importance. 50% for the multiple choice, 50% for the free response. Now, the free response, though, will have parts of reading and listening, because when students respond to the email, they have to read and understand the email they're responding to. In the conversation, they have to understand the interaction. So what the other person they're speaking to is saying. And also in the argumentative essay, they have to read and understand the article and the article's point of view, read and understand a chart, and then in the end, listen and understand to an audio file, because they need to understand each source's point of view to use in their essay. So in reality, even though the test is equally divided into multiple choice and free response, in reality, I would say that the multiple choice, not the multiple choice, but the interpretive part of the exam, where they have to read and listen and understand, takes over also in the free response. So that is probably the reading and listening. Those are the two skills that students have to pay particular attention to.
Great. And you talked about audio files. How many times do students get to listen to audio files during the exam?
In the multiple choice and in the argumentative essay, they listen to the audio source twice. So when they have to respond in the multiple choice with their answers, they listen twice. In the argumentative essay, they listen twice. But in the conversation, they will hear each interaction only once. So it is particularly important in the conversation to listen carefully the first time, because then they will hear a sound and they will have to interact immediately. To help them though in this interaction, even though they listen only once, they will always have an introduction, and they also have an outline to guide their answers.
You also talked about that they have to read and respond to questions and they have to listen to conversations. What is the level of the grammar they have to know? Do they have to know the subjunctive and the conditional and respond in those tenses?
Well, it will not hurt if they do. So in a part of the scoring guidelines, they will find that there is, especially for to receive a 5, there is part of the scoring guidelines that requires accuracy and variety in grammar, in vocabulary, in the use of vocabulary. But the reality is that the test is extremely communicative. So if they are good at interacting in the conversation, in responding to an email, in presenting both with an essay or the cultural comparison, and they can explain their ideas properly, even without using particularly advanced structures, they will be fine and they can get a 5.
You talked about the importance of the culture comparison. How does that component work in the AP exam?
I would say that it is the most beautiful part, because it's where students have the opportunity to show really their knowledge of the culture, everything they learned in the classroom, everything they learned when they were watching movies or documentaries, or they read articles, what they really understood about Italy. So that's very important. It is a presentation, okay? It is a presentation and a comparison. So the most important part as a presentation, they should have a clear introduction. They should have several examples to compare Italian culture and their own community, making a constant comparison between the two, and obviously showing they know a lot about Italy. So they should definitely focus on the culture in Italy, and then obviously compare it to their own. But it's very important that they show Italian culture. And then they should have a conclusion where I always advise restate your answer to the question that you find in the cultural comparison, because you want to make sure that from the introduction to giving all the examples, and then in the end, you make sure that you're answering the question you were asked and you compared. So in the end, you really have to restate the comparison that you're making between Italy and your own community.
And is it a typical 5-paragraph essay? How long does the essay have to be?
Well, for the argumentative essay, the cultural comparison is a spoken presentation. The argumentative essay is the written presentation, and it works just like the cultural comparison, but they need to have their introduction, their conclusion, and then they should have either 1 paragraph per source, which would make it 3 paragraphs, where they do not just summarize the source, but they use the point of view of the source as evidence to give their answer. Because at the beginning, argumentative essay, they have a question. And so they should use each source as evidence to what their answer is, to what their opinion is.
And so, what are some of the strategies you would suggest students look at when they're addressing each of the different tasks in the exam?
Um, well, I believe that in the multiple choice, what is particularly important is to keep your focus on what you're doing. You should just eliminate any form of distraction, just be thoroughly focused on the reading passage. You should read the questions very carefully so that when you're reading, you are able to see the answer immediately. And same thing for the listening. For the listening, the exam is going to be on paper. So it's important that students know that they can take all sorts of notes on that paper. And for example, when they're listening, it would be important to write down every single thing they hear. It is also important to focus on the time, because they don't have a lot of time to answer each question. So that's why the focus is so important, because if you're focusing, you will use all the time that you have wisely. For the email, it is important that they identify when they're reading the email they're responding to, they need to identify the questions immediately, because they will have only 15 minutes to read the email and respond. So it's important to identify immediately the questions and respond. And it's usually pretty easy because they have bullets. So the questions are super highlighted in the email. And then it's important for them to look at the rest of the email and find all the information they need to ask for further information. They need to have understood the email well. For the argumentative essay, it is important that they understand the sources well. In every case, for the production, for the free response part, it is fundamental to read the introduction to each part and also to each source, because this way they will have a hint of what the article is about, what is the chart presenting, what is the audio file going to talk about, and this will definitely help them. So it's very important to do that, and also to use their time wisely, because they will have 40 minutes. If they took their notes, if they highlighted enough in the sources, they will be able to use those 40 minutes to organize the essay as a presentation carefully. For the cultural comparison, the most important thing is taking notes. Students have 4 minutes to take notes. They have to remember that it's going to be a presentation, a comparison, but a presentation. So they should have something for the introduction. Then they have to organize their notes divided by what in Italy is relevant to this topic. And so all the examples for Italy. Then what is relevant in my community about the same topic, and what do they have in common? So the notes should really be divided, and then they should find a strategy to have all the elements that can be in common between Italian culture and their communities. For the conversation, since you are going to hear each prompt, each interaction only once, and then you will have 20 seconds to respond, it is very important that you read the introduction well, as we said, so as to understand what the conversation is going to be about. You read the outline well, because in the outline, you will see what you have to say. Remember that it's not just pure improvisation. You have to do exactly what the College Board says you should do, and you will find it in the outline. And then just say everything you can in those 20 seconds that you have to respond to the interaction. Now, what do you do if you did not understand what the other person said? Well, show confidence and remember what you read in the introduction, what the topic of the conversation is. Say something. Do not leave the space empty, because that would definitely show that you did not understand. Try to do your best to always focus on what the topic of the conversation is. But if you didn't really understand, just interact. Say something for those 20 seconds. Should you understand later in the conversation what the question was at the beginning, make sure that in the next 20 seconds, you sort of try to answer both questions. Because, this would happen also in a normal conversation. Sometimes we don't understand something immediately, and then we go, oh yeah, now I know. And then you interact for that part. But especially show confidence, because you studied Italian for what, 3-4 years, you're obviously able to interact in a conversation.
For the recorded portion of the exam, I'm assuming that there's going to be some type of a device that the students are going to use. And I know from some of our past students, there is some stress around not being able to record within the given amount of time. And so what are some tips that you can give students maybe to practice ahead of time with the recording device, or what can you contribute about that?
Well, I think that first of all, they need to practice using whatever device they're going to use on test day before the test day. They need to be comfortable with the device, because the day of the test, they need to focus on the content, on their performance, not on how to use a tool. So they should ask their teacher, or if they are external candidates, they should ask the school they're going to test at what they're going to use, whether they're going to use a laptop with an application, whether they're using a handheld device, and they should really do some practice just to feel comfortable enough. But they will always have a proctor on test day. And so if they didn't have a chance to practice with the device before, just before the exam, they can practice it with the proctor. I am pretty sure that every school gives them this opportunity.
And how is the exam scored?
So the exam is scored, well, the multiple choice is obviously sort of goes on automatic, while the free response is scored in June at the AP reading, where teachers from high schools in the United States and college professors meet, and they decide on if for each we only score the free response, obviously. So we decide on what is going to be a 5, what is going to be a 4, what is going to be on a 3, a 2, a 1, possibly not 2 or 1. Nobody is going to get a 2 or a 1. We are all heading for a 5. And then there is a training. The leadership trains for about a week in order to understand the difficulty of each task. And then the week after, there are all the AP readers that will score. There is a training, because it is very important that everybody has very clear what a 5 needs to be, what a 4 needs to be for each score. Everybody has to be on the same line, you know, because the exams are scored for a just scoring, and so that students receive a just result in the end. And yes, so it's all decided by several people. Each exam goes through several people. We have question leaders, we have a strong leadership that also double checks each score to make sure that students always receive the results that really corresponds to their preparation.
So, for students who might speak Italian at home with parents, how important is taking an AP class for them to be able to pass the exam?
Well, it is not necessary, but it is very useful. First of all, we have to remember that when we learn a language at home, we are not necessarily using academic language with our parents, with our family. So taking an AP Italian class gives you the academic part of the language. It prepares you to take the test, but it's not really just for the test. It prepares you to acquire skills that you can use in your profession, in your future profession, or at university. And that, for that, obviously, it is important to have to follow the lead of a teacher who can guide you and can enrich your vocabulary, teach you advanced structures that you probably don't use within your family.
That actually leads me to my next question, and my last question, actually, which is what are some of the benefits of taking the AP Italian exam for students?
As I mentioned before, you acquire skills at a higher level than if you're just learning Italian for mere survival, which is sort of what happens in level 1 or 2. If you get to the AP level, your Italian is very accurate. Yes, you will still make some mistakes, but we all do. I'm a native speaker and I make mistakes in Italian because that is absolutely normal. But your Italian will become more, you will be able to use it also in a formal context. And also your knowledge of the culture is going to be a lot deeper than if you were just studying at a regular academic level. So I think that is very important because you need to learn a language because it is also useful for you. And I mean, it's also beautiful when you're learning Italian. And it is extremely useful if you go to university because state universities all give you a credit for it. And what does that mean? First of all, it means you will save a lot of money in case you are satisfied already with your knowledge and skills in Italian. You can just have your university credit and study something else. But if you're passionate about Italian, you will probably have an easy access to a minor in Italian, to a major with just a few more exams. And that means that you can focus on what your main major is going to be. So your profession. And at the same time, I think that it is extremely important, whatever profession you will choose, whatever academic future for the next few years at college you will have, it is very important to have part of your preparation in humanities. If you are not planning on registering at a college or on attending university, but you want to enlist in the military, for example, I've had several students who came back happy because since they took the AP Italian, they were also paid more when they were in the military. So in reality, the advantages are really several. And let's not forget, it's also a human enrichment
Yeah,
for
I think that's
yourself.
a great point to end on. Thank you so much, Maria Gloria, for joining us today. And thank you to all our AP students out there, and good luck on the exam.
Thank you,
Ciao.
Hilary. Ciao.